Hello, everyone, and welcome to my CHN podcast, Health Conversations Without Barriers. This is Mariela and CHA Gang.
Hi, I'm Benjamin.
And unfortunately, two of our regular hosts are not here, but today we have a very special guest. Her name is Veronica Cavazos. She's a licensed professional counselor.
That is right. That is what I am. I am a licensed professional counselor. Hi, everyone. My name is Veronica Cavazos, and as Mariela said, I am a licensed professional counselor.
Veronica has been practicing therapy for 7 years, and she's been with Community Health Network for 3 years. So just to give a little background of Community Health Network, we are a federally qualified health center in Brazoria, Harris, and Galveston County, and we provide all types of services starting from behavioral health, mental health, dental, psychiatry, pediatric services through medical and prenatal. And if you have any other questions, you can go to www.mychn.org. All right, but just to give a quick little recap, this is the second episode of The Worst Roommate Ever, the Netflix series. And today, Veronica is going to be our guest for Be Careful with the Quiet Ones. So thank you for being here, Veronica.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this opportunity.
All right, everyone. So we're going to start with the story. So the second episode starts with a woman calling 911 from Orange County Police Department. And this was on April 21st, 2013. So the woman starts kind of telling the 911 operator that she talked to her roommate, he's going to move out, but she's scared of him. And then she starts crying. And then as the operator, which is a woman, starts asking him some questions like, what's your name? It cuts off. Then we see the news saying an Army veteran and a Cal State Fullerton student from Orange County has disappeared. And we find out that her name is Maribel Ramos, and they're investigating as a missing persons case with suspicious circumstances. And I'm just going to say Maribel was very beautiful. Like, her pictures, everything about her. She was a very, you could tell she had a lot of charisma. Then we meet Detective Joey Ramirez. He's a retired police officer detective of Orange County. And he says that the town is very safe, not a lot of serious crime. So when this happened, it kind of put everyone in alarm mode. So apparently, the family, as soon as they find out, they started, passing out flyers, trying to get information, letting the public know what has happened, that no one has seen her. And then we see footage of, besides the family, an older Asian guy saying that Maribel is his best friend, his only friend, a family member. And then we find out that this gentleman's name is Casey Joy. So how Maribel and Casey Joy met is because Maribel wanted a roommate, but she put an ad on Craigslist looking for a roommate for $700. And, the family met him. They thought, hey, he's a little bit older than her, but, they're just going to be roommates and he looks like a nice person. He's safe. Anyways, that's how they became roommates. Lucero, Maribel's sister, said there was no red flags. So both of them thought it was a good idea for him to move in. And again, because they were roommates, they were sharing a lot of time together. And because he was lonely, he said he didn't have a wife, he didn't have kids, he didn't have family. They invited him to a lot of family events. So Maribel would take him to her family events. I don't know about you guys, but I think that if I bring a guy to a family event, if my family does not know the story, that does not know that he's just my friend, they might think, is she dating him? Am I doing mental gymnastics here when I think that maybe he thought this was like a romantic thing?
So I think that, it's not mental gymnastics, so to speak, that he got that idea. Maribel and her family, from what I can tell, they come from a Hispanic, Latin background. And being that I am Hispanic, we are very welcoming, especially when we see people that are, lonely or maybe don't have a lot of family around. It's a very open, like almost like an open door kind of thing when it comes to family. And I think that because her family was so welcoming and bringing him and including him in family dinners, family events, family functions, he gravitated towards that. So it does not surprise me that these like relationship type emotions, romantic emotions started to arise relatively quickly.
Pretty much, I was going to say something similar to that, that yes, she was Hispanic, and in that culture, we are pretty inviting.
To a fault.
Yeah. Well, yes, according to this story, definitely. I was also going to say that being that he was lonely, and eventually, I guess we'll get more into that on what happened to him a little bit, although there's not a whole lot of information. Um, I can see how he might have been developing I guess feelings for her, or the only one that kind of showed feelings of care towards him. She was
Mhm.
kind to him, and he had nobody else left. He had basically no family to turn to.
Yeah, it's not till like the end of the episode that we find out a little bit more family history on him, a little bit more about his background. Because at the start of it, it really only says that he was moving to that area for a job. And it's like, okay, great. I think she had been living in Orange County for a while, or in that particular, town, city. I think the welcoming in of things is more so about like, the culture, the Hispanic, the Latin culture, but also like, hey, you're new to the area. You may not know a lot of people. You're just getting started. So you pull all those things in together, and it very much can lead to a, romantic fantasy almost, or romantic emotions in that way. And it can be very dangerous, as we see, with this episode. Because if those feelings are not always reciprocated, shared, you're living with a person. And just because you're roommates doesn't mean it's platonic.
And the other thing I would say, she was younger than him. She was attractive. I honestly, I saw her pictures. I said, oh, she's a good looking woman. She was young, she was active, and you could
Mhm.
tell that she had a lot going on. She had a lot of potential. So if he found her attractive and he was lonely, and she was very caring for him, and she would invite him out to eat, go for a walk with his dog, I I could see how he started kind of romanticizing all of that.
Mhm. Yeah, she was a tough girl. She was in the army. She served in, I think, 2 tours. She did 2 tours in the Middle East right after 9/11. Like, this chick was tough. Like, she was beautiful, she was athletic, she was intelligent, she was working on her bachelor's degree. I think she had a lot, like, really going for her. And when we listen to the interviews from her niece and from her sister, they really talk about what, like, a positive light, what a strong and important role model, she was for that family. And so if that is what she's giving off to her immediate family, like her sister and her niece, I can only imagine, what Casey Joy was getting, from her. And, whatever nurturing or just friendly, vibes he was picking up from her, that of course he was taking, very indirectly. So it's not hard to develop these types of feelings when you're in a friendship or relationship of sorts with a person. So, when you live together with someone, roommate or otherwise, you have some sort of friendship, some sort of relationship going on.
Which I'm gonna say I did not know this. The detective says in every missing person case, the last person that saw that person that went missing becomes the target for an investigation, which I did not know. And that's why Casey Joy became a target for this investigation because they lived together.
Mhm.
So, he comes in for interrogation, and the detective says, "Thank you, for coming here." Her friends and family are very worried about her, and then Casey cuts him off and says, "I'm worried about her. She's my family. She's my friend. I love her." And you see the cop saying, "Uh-huh." So you kind of hear the cop just trying to, like, his wheels just spinning a little bit. And then he
Mhm.
starts asking him, "Oh, what was the last time you saw her?" He says, "About 9 p.m. I went out and came back at 10 p.m. and she was gone." The detective says, "Where did you go for an hour?" Casey said, "I drove for an hour and came back." I don't know about you, but no one goes out just for a drive. What do you guys think detective was feeling when Casey said, "I only went out for a drive. That's it"?
Think definitely red flags went up. Because that's not a solid excuse. Like you said, that sounds very phony. He just went out for a drive. And then on top of that, this all happened, I think, when they went to the house because already she had been messing for a long enough time. They said in there that he was just in his car at first, staring, watching them with binoculars. So if they saw
Mhm.
that behavior, I mean, again, immediately that's definitely where you're gonna go. Because how does someone just disappear? If they're gone for an hour.
Exactly. I found it very suspicious too that it was just very vague about, oh, I went for a drive. And typically, if you're being interrogated, you want to give some information to not sound so suspicious. But then you can always give too much information, and that's suspicious too. So there's there's so much of a fine line between the two of those things. But it's kind of like he could have given more information about what was going on, what he was doing. Like, hey, I went to go walk my dog, and I was up and down the block, or um, I went for a blizzard, at Dairy Queen or something. I don't know. But it just, I think even his body language, like when you look at his body language, it was like when I rewatched this episode, I was like, the guy looks so smug sitting there. And I paid attention to that body language. Even when they interviewed him the second time, the body language was just so smug to me, like, I'm innocent and you can't prove anything. I'm innocent. I've done, nothing wrong. And it was just like, yeah, a lot of red flags went up for me too, just by the way that he was communicating, and got very territorial. Like you said, Mariela, that he was saying, she's my friend, she's my best friend, she's my family. It's like that grab on that relationship type status kind of thing. Another way of putting relationship, putting a form of relationship there.
No, I would say, going back, because you said you watched it twice. I only saw it once, but I was wondering like how he could stay so calm, especially when the newscast was there interviewing him. I mean, he was just, I thought he was just very calm about it, and maybe that's part of why you saw him being smug. I don't
Mhm.
know.
And what the funny thing is that what I liked about the episode was that it gives you like a timeline. It gives you like a day before she went missing, what was going on. That 911 call that we hear at the beginning of the episode, that was like a few days before she went missing. And then we get 1 day that she's missing, 2 days that she's missing, like a week after she's missing. So depending on when, this happened, when all of this stuff went down, your mind can go into like hyperdrive, and you start rehearsing everything you want to say. Hey, what was I doing? I know that they're going to ask me this. I know that they're going to ask me this type of question. And sometimes we rely on podcasts, on, movies, TV shows, of what we think detectives are going to typically ask. So we rehearse those responses. So realistically, in reality, we don't know how long this guy had been rehearsing these responses, that when he gets into the interview in front of the TV reporters, in front of detectives, he's already got it, his spiel of what he wants to say, he's got it down cold. He knows, how to do it. So it helps with that, because if he has to come up with this stuff right off the bat, that's the dead giveaway that detectives are like, we can catch him in this because we know that he's lying. This didn't match. This didn't add up.
Now we go into learning a little bit more about him, right? So, dear listener, if you can hear, you can tell that I have an accent. And as an immigrant, I felt for him because he had an accent. So, when he was explaining things, I had empathy and sympathy for him because, again, when I get extremely nervous, it comes out and it gets very, very thick. So, he bamboozled us. He tricked us. He does not have an accent. And why do you guys think he faked this?
You said it yourself. You answered your own question. The sympathy, the vulnerability of that, oh, he's an immigrant and, it's obvious, or, all these things. And I think that's why he was doing that. And then of course, one of the detectives had made a comment that it was really hard for him to follow along with what he was saying because of the accent, how he was saying certain things. He was saying that it would kind of jump around. It would kind of like nothing was adding up or connecting or making a lot of sense. And I tried, like when I listened to it the second time, I tried not looking at the television because it gives you the captions of what he's saying. I tried not looking at that to see if I could follow along, kind of like the detectives, if I could hear it. And I was like, it's jumbled. It's very jumbled. And there's sometimes where it's very clear, and then other times where it got thicker with the accent. And then lo and behold, the sister, I believe what was her name? Lucero, right? Lucy, referred to her as Lucy. Yeah. She was like, and this accent, where did this accent come from? She's one of the people that's known him the longest. She's one of the people that's been around him a lot of times. Heard him speak in person, heard him speak on the phone. And all of a sudden he has an accent. It's like, red flag alerts, sirens blaring. Hello, what's going on here? But like you said, Mariela, that accent can make people feel like sympathy for them. And we don't want to believe that this individual who struggles in this specific way with language would be this horrible of a person. As you can tell, as we see, not always the case.
Yeah, because even to me, I would say, oh my God, I don't think he's understanding what they're asking him. At the beginning, I just kept telling myself this at the beginning. I said, he's not understanding what they're asking. And later on, the detective said, we got some calls from some neighbors saying that they saw him on the news, and they were saying, why did his language went down so bad? Like, he doesn't speak this way. So the neighbors called and, they said he does not have an accent. So I also want to ask, why do you think he could not accept the pre-rejection when he called Maribel's sister, Lucy, Lucero, and said, I'm in love with your sister? Because Lucero pretty much told him, hey, you're a nice friend, you're a nice person, but you're not right for her.
I was actually wondering the same thing. The only thing I could think of is just that, again, he's just all alone and she's all that he had. And building up, romanticizing, felt he'd have nothing left if she left him. Although she didn't necessarily want to leave him, she just wanted to be like a friend. That's what I got. At first she didn't necessarily want to kick him out or anything. But yeah, that's actually a good question.
Why he did not accept the pre-rejection. I think it's kind of like because I thought, like, why wouldn't he just go to, Maribel directly? Like, you're grown adults, but that's me. That's how I am. I'm very direct, And maybe he was kind of testing the waters a little bit, because sometimes we do that, I think I listen to so many, teenagers and young kids talk, and I hear a lot of, well, this guy that I like came up to my friend and asked my friend, if I liked him too. And so when I heard, when I was hearing Lucero talk about this, that's what it reminded me of, like a little, high school kind of thing. So he was testing the waters, like, do I have a chance with this person? And of course, when he gets a response that he doesn't like, when a person is determined, there's nothing that's going to stop us. There's nothing that's going to hold us back. It's all about getting what we want. We're not going to stop doing that. Like she asked him when things got out of hand, when things just, pursued further, when he did confront her, about his feelings, the end result was she asked him to move out. And even then, he didn't leave. Even then, he did not, end things. And so that goes to show like his pattern. If he's not getting what he wants, he's not stopping at anything until he gets it. So people don't always take rejection easily. They don't like being rejected. They don't want that. I'm going to be alone again. I've lost something else again. So it brings up feelings of like defeat or, extreme sadness. And mixed in all of that can be some anger. And when that anger erupts, it's really hard to control it. And I really think that that's what happened in this particular case, is that his anger erupted. He'd been rejected by, by Maribel's sister. Then he gets rejected directly by Maribel. Then he gets rejected like a third way because he's got to move out. There's your eruption, and it's like a volcano. You can't control the lava. You can't stop it from, destroying some things. And unfortunately, that's kind of what happened. We can't reverse his anger and what happened in those moments.
Yeah. That's why I kind of wish they did a little bit more of a background with him, because they briefly touched up on it and said that, he was out of the will, and then his sister kicked him out and didn't want anything to do with him because of his anger. And so then you see it here where it kind of plays a part. Obviously, he just can't control himself. And it's also just weird because it seems more like obsession. At least that's how I thought, rather than love. So I don't know. Sometimes it's a thin line, I guess. That was another question I was going to have is like, where does it vary?
It's hard. It changes from subject to subject or relationship to relationship. I can see where you get, the idea, the hints of obsession, especially more towards the end. And I think that comes from having a connection, with people, having, this family type relationship with people, and we don't want to lose it. So we tighten our grip around it. And it just became too much for him. I do agree with you that I wish we did have more background on his history with anger. I would have liked, like, hey, what did the detectives discover after the conversation with his sister about his anger? What has he done? How far has it gone before? Has he ever tried to hurt anyone else? Even people who have histories of hurting animals. Like, did he ever do anything like that? That could have been a red flag, for someone. My other question, what I just thought of, did she do any background checks on this guy? Because it's like, if you're going to get a roommate, it's like, I'm going to want to know everything. Like, okay, yeah, your application looks great, but I'm going to run your credit. I'm going to do a background check. Did she do something, especially with her military background, or did she fall for that vulnerability of an older man with maybe a little bit of an accent in there, a little bit, new to the area? Did she fall for all those vulnerabilities that he laid out so beautifully for her?
Yeah, I think she fell for the vulnerability, personally. That's
Yeah.
what I think. She went, and plus just being in the military and him being an older man and he's not that big, she probably thought, yeah, I could take this guy. I mean, she probably didn't think that, but I'm sure she didn't feel threatened by him.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Like, there was a lot of cases where I was like, she probably thought, if anything, I got this. I can take him. I have this training. I think she played one of the reasons that they opened the missing persons thing report was that she missed a softball game. So she was athletic. She had a bat, she had a weapon in her apartment. She had something there. So based on her training, in the military, and then based on, having a bat with her, I'm pretty sure she probably felt the safest that, yeah, this is good. His application looks good. Conversation's going well. I feel comfortable. She let her guard down. Those vulnerabilities definitely were very much exposed. And a person who is manipulative, a person who has a history with anger and aggression, they're going to look at all of those things and they're going to take advantage of them and they're going to pick them apart, piece by piece. Because once you start to manipulate someone, you don't stop, you really don't stop. And I think that in many ways, there was a lot of manipulating going on that may have been very, underrated. But if you look at it a little bit more clearly with things, he was doing it very obviously. And then it's very obvious when he's talking to investigators, when he's talking to the reporters, that he's manipulating them. He's completely manipulating. In the last interview that he did, where, they were charging him with it, he's got so much, like, his ego is so big. Oh, you better have some evidence. You better have something to prove me guilty. Like, he thought he had it all. He thought he had manipulated everything, and he didn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was very weird how he was telling him when they brought him in the second time, I'm really interested to see what kind of proof you have. So in a way, when he was saying that, it was kind of like he was admitting to me that he was already guilty because
Yeah.
he kind of already knew it. But he just wanted to know what proof they had because they couldn't do anything without proof.
Mhm.
But I just thought of something in the episode when she called the police. She basically told them she was doing it just to give them a heads up in case she does something. And then they send a cop over. Basically, she tells them that it's okay. He's going to move out at the end of the month. So that does indicate that he was very good at manipulating. Because
Mhm.
why else would she allow that? I mean, she sounded very shooken up during
Yes.
the call. And now,
She
yeah.
was literally, and this is one of the things that upset me. I literally, I might need some anger management after this. But it upset me because this woman called. She started crying. She said, I'm scared, I want him to move out. She feels unsafe in her own house. Think about this. That's her house, pretty much rent from her. And she was uncomfortable, obviously. And they sent a cop, but pretty much after that, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, he's going to move out. I felt kind of like, so this woman had to go missing for 12 days for you guys to see your 911 record, to see that this woman called about her roommate.
But they may not have known that she made this 911 call. Like, the record is there, but if no one knew that she had made that call, you have to find that record. It's like here at CHN, we get medical records in all the time, but unless we're going to those, to a patient's chart and looking to see if those medical records are there, we have no knowledge if they've come in or not. So my thing would have been like, sure, she did the right thing. She did the safest thing for herself, which is make that 911 call, like, as a heads up. But did she tell anyone else? Like, did she tell her sister, hey, I made a 911 call just in case? This way, when the sister goes and says, I need to report my sister, Maribel Ramos, missing, she made a 911 call on this day to give a heads up. Maybe, just maybe, we could have sped up the process of looking for her or investigating Casey Joy. Maybe. But, the legal system is its own spider web, and you can't always manipulate how it works when police, when missing person reports are filed or when they are, investigated. And that to me is one of the biggest things that upsets me about, the police or the legal system, is that you get oh, you got to wait 24 hours, you got to wait 48 hours before we can do this. Those minutes, those seconds are precious. Now, we don't know, they didn't go into detail of where Maribel was killed and murdered. They didn't go into that. And we don't know how she ended up, at that park. But, I still think that, a lot of things could have been prevented or this, the running around that Casey Joy was causing in a lot of ways could have been prevented if we didn't wait so long for that. But that's another, like shoulda, coulda, woulda kind of thing, unfortunately.
So now remember, Casey is the main person of interest, right? So the cops are tailing Casey Joy. He went to the public library and he used a laptop from the library. So the thing about this is that the public library belongs to the government. The government are able to see your record when you get a laptop from the library. So he was searching a lot of very suspicious, like how long does it take for a body to decay? Can they track can they track your location from your cell phone? Which, the cops were thinking, oh, kind of weird, but anyone could be pretty much searching that. And he noticed that Maribel's family coordinated an awareness walk. And he noticed the location, and then he starts Google mapping the location and how far it was from a tree. Imagine the panic that he was feeling when he noticed where the walk was going to be.
I just thought it was like, how strange where he left it. They were also holding a awareness walk. I think somewhere in there, the niece said that they went out there with her, and so it was a very special place. Maybe she went there with him, and then that just raises more questions. Why would he put her in such, a special place?
I did not think of that. Oh my God. I did not think maybe she took him there and he thought it was
Yes.
a special place.
Because remember, the niece said they picked that area or that park because she had taken her and her mom there, for these walks and for time. So there's a good possibility he was familiar. He knew that was a special place for her. Maybe he went there with her before. And since maybe he didn't know a lot of places in the area. So he went with something that he felt was like secluded and, out of the way. Nobody's going to find it. But I just want to point out that if you're going to commit a crime, don't go to a place that's public, like the library, the public library. I'm like, I wanted to laugh at this guy. I'm like, really, dude? Like, you're going to use a public computer and you're going to Google this incriminating, information. Now, granted, and I think the detective said, hey, anybody can Google this. Anybody may want to know this information just because. But when you've committed a crime, why would you look this stuff up on a public device? I was like, that was a head scratcher both times that I watched this episode. I was like, the second time I was like, why? Like, why? Have you not watched Law and Order? Like, so many things came to mind, and he gave it all away. Like, he literally gave himself away by wanting to be cocky, and maybe that was something like he thought they won't know. I'm going to be so obvious by going to the public library that I'm doing this all under their nose. I think this guy was egotistical in some ways, because another thing, I'm going to go back a little bit here. After he got that rejection from the sister, he got how many thousands of dollars worth of plastic surgery?
He started getting tattoos because Maribel said one time, I think he's like, oh, you look good with tattoos. He started dressing younger, talking more hipster.
Exactly. I really think this guy had some egotistical, tendencies, and it kind of showed. I don't want to say it shows, but look at what he did at a public location on a public device that information can be pulled. And it's like, it just screams like ego to me, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, ego, or maybe he just wanted to get caught. They say sometimes that's the case too.
True.
Yeah, I was wondering why he was going to the library as well. But maybe he didn't have anything else. He doesn't have his own computer, or he doesn't have access, or
I was like, do you not have a cell phone? Like, I can't remember. Maria, do you remember what year this happened in? Off the top of my head, I can't remember what year this went down.
2014. So
okay, so we had cell phones, we had smartphones, we had personal laptop devices and iPads and tablets of all kinds, and yet we're using a shared public device. That threw me off. that threw me for a loop, but I don't know. And if a person wants to get caught, I think we just need to knock on the door and say, hello, police. I'd like to turn myself in, keep it simple.
So, right. So once the cops see that he searches from a tree to where the walk is, they say, gotcha. And they send some cops to see exactly where that tree is. And they found Maribel's body. And on July 29, 2014, Casey Joe was sentenced to 15 years in jail, which in my opinion, that was not enough. 15 years for taking a person's life, that's nothing. That's like,
No, it said 15 years to life, but even then, just the minimum of 15 years, I'm like, that's nowhere, enough. And everything that you did, it just like, again, some things that I just don't agree with in the legal system. But of course, it all depends on the state too, the individual state and the state's laws on what happens, what level of murder, first degree, second degree, third degree murder, that kind of stuff. Those are the things that it depends on as well. But it's very unfortunate that a person who took this bright, intelligent, beautiful, loving woman away from family who really, she was really close to and who inspired a lot of people. It's a very unfortunate situation, but I'm glad that he, if nothing else, 15 years or not, 15 years or more, I'm glad that he has been caught, convicted, and taken off the streets. I'm glad for that.
and I went to say Lucero because Lucero, she feels, you could tell that with her body language and her voice, feels a little, she feels regret and she feels maybe I could have prevented this because her sister said, hey, move in with me. And she did not want to because, she had her family already and she
Mhm.
kind of had her life set. And I just want to say, Lucero, you can't predict the future. I think you're an awesome sister. You're a great mother. This is something that happened, and I feel, she has a lot of. I could have prevented this kind of feeling.
Mhm. Yeah, and she said it. She says it at the end too. Like, I should have just done this, and I feel for her because living with guilt is a very, very heavy weight that is not easily taken off from someone. But she also made a comment that she didn't feel like, I think she said this wasn't God's will at this time, but it was going to happen. Something was, going to happen. I think that's how she said it, something along those lines, which I thought was like, that's an interesting way of putting it, almost like if there's an acceptance there, a little bit. And this happened in 2013, and this I'm going to say like maybe they recorded this in last year. They filmed this last year. So there's a big gap in time that she's been able to heal and grieve and hopefully get her own therapy for this trauma, and continues to get help. So it's unfortunate, but hopefully we learn from these experiences, we learn from these situations.
So this has come to an end, everyone, and I just want to let everyone know that mental health is a journey. And if you would like to learn more about CHN's mental health services, you can go to mychn.org. And we have counseling, we have psychiatry, group therapy, anything you can find there. And I want to thank Veronica Cavazos. She's a great counselor, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun doing this. I look forward to talking more about other topics, other things, and yes, please, if you or anyone you may know needs help, mental health, behavioral health, therapy, counseling, psychiatry, anything like that, please reach out to us here at CHN. We'll have our information posted. You can reach us at mychn.org. Do not hesitate. I like to point out, especially when we talk about topics like this, they can be triggering for some people. It's trauma related. If you experience any of that, do not hesitate to reach out to us. We're open 7 days a week. Our phone lines are open. Please reach out to us. We're here to help. We have some great therapists on our team.
Don't forget to demonstrate your love by sharing this podcast with your friends and family or giving us a review on Spotify and iTunes. Until next time.